What are the most common tax planning mistakes construction company owners make? What are 2 or 3 strategies from a tax perspective every construction company should review at the beginning of each fiscal year? These and other questions we dive into today with my guest, Timothy Wingate. And Timothy is the founder of G+F Business and Financial Consulting. He specializes in accounting and financial consulting in the construction industry. And he is a specialist when it comes to helping construction companies have clean books that help them to understand how money is flowing through their organization and helps them to maximize the profitability and the success of their company. So enjoy my conversation with Timothy here today. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Timothy, welcome back to Construction Genius.
Eric, thanks for having me back. I feel honored. I feel special.
Well, your honor is my honor also. I'm glad to have you. We're recording this in March 2025, and so tax season is upon us. Tax season is almost ongoing for construction companies, but I do want to take a time just to do some discussion around tax planning and things like that. So what are the most common tax planning mistakes construction company owners make?
Some of the first one, which is not something that's really thought about a lot, is the choice of accounting method that you choose. Most of them are running on a cash basis, but they should be, going to an accrual basis and probably implementing the completed contract method or the percentage of completion method. And so choosing the right accounting method really is a huge win on the tax planning side of things for a construction company.
Okay, so when you're consulting with a construction company, what kind of questions are you asking them to know which way to advise them to go?
Well, I already know that it's going to be best for them to go to an accrual type of accounting method, either using the completed contract method or the percentage of completion method. It's all about, are they ready? Because to use those methods, there's a lot of other systems and processes that need to be in place and people to manage those things. And so, because if they're not managed properly, then those methods won't help you at all because the data won't be correct.
Okay, so what's the biggest misconception construction company owners have about the accrual method of accounting?
The misconception is that, I don't know if there's a misconception, so to speak, because I think there's just I hate to use the term, but I think there's just an ignorance around how to effectively implement the method. And they're just not good at tracking things, especially from a back office type of way of doing things. Like, making sure they get receipts, invoices uploaded into the accounting system, just making sure that the office is organized. And most construction guys don't like to be in the office. And sometimes they have a good person in the office, sometimes they don't.
So how does the accrual method give construction leaders better insight into the true profitability of their projects?
Yeah, so with the accrual method, you're counting cash, or I should say not cash, but income as you invoice. So you know how much money you have sitting out there. And on the bill side, when suppliers or vendors are giving you bills, if you put that into the system, now the system is showing you your P&L with those transactions taken into account, even though you haven't paid those bills yet.
Right.
So it allows you to see in the future of like where my cash position will be, my true cash position will be for the company.
It sounds like they got to step up from the minor leagues to the majors kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So what are the first things they need to do in order to be able to move to the accrual method? Where should someone start, particularly if they know they need to make the jump, but they're not there yet?
Yeah, I think what you first need to think about is like my internal processes of capturing data. So hey, how do I collect receipts right now?
Right.
And how do I code receipts currently? So you need an efficient process to manage just receipt capture and how to handle bills that are coming in. Also, how quickly are you invoicing? I can't tell you how many contractors I run into who are behind in invoicing.
Yeah.
And that's a huge problem. So you got to have those internal processes in place. So you need to make sure that you have someone to either manage that process, where they're going to be doing these things daily, weekly, but just being consistent with it, and that the information is correct once it's entered into the system.
Okay. So the whole conversation around accrual method is vital. What are some of the other tax planning mistakes that construction company owners make?
Yeah. Another tax planning mistake is a lot of these owners sometimes don't even have themselves on salary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're just taking distributions out of the company, and a lot of times they're creating a huge tax liability for themselves.
Yeah.
Because if they're, a single member LLC or any type of disregarded entity, then they're getting hit with federal taxes, self-employment taxes, and also in some cases, state income taxes.
Yeah.
So you got this income that's getting hit with 3 different taxes, versus if you had a S corporation and you were set up to pay yourself through salary. Now your salary becomes deductible for the company, but then you also decrease your tax liability on the business side. And then if you take distributions, if you're profitable, you actually taking tax-free distributions at that time, which is, but a lot of them don't know they need to monitor their shareholders' basis if they're an S corporation. Because if the shareholders' basis is 0, then it don't matter if the company made a profit, but then you take in all the profits as distributions and you took excess amount of profits. Now you created a taxable event, and now you're going to be charged capital gains taxes on that excess amount.
Yeah. So it's really vital that you take some time and have a strong discussion. In your view, working with contractors over the years, what is the best corporate structure for a construction company?
The best corporate structure really depends on where you are.
Right.
Very small companies, anyone who's doing less than $1 million and then they're not making a bunch of profit, then they probably can stick around and continue to be a single member LLC, disregarded entity, but they still should put themselves on salary. That way they're controlling the company's outlook. Like, hey, are we doing well or are we not? Because if I can't pay myself a salary, then I know something's going wrong.
Right.
But if they're, $1 million or more, you should be an S corporation, at least. When we start talking about partnerships and other different types of things, if you have investors, then we're talking about C corporations at that time.
Yep.
But at minimum, an S corporation, if you had $1 million of revenue and you're doing, you have some pretty good profits.
Yeah. What would you say are 2 or 3 tax strategies every construction company should be reviewing at the beginning of each fiscal year?
Yeah. So the first one is what we talked about earlier. They should be saying that, hey, am I using the right accounting method?
Yep.
To make sure that I'm taking advantage of all the different timing strategies that an accounting method gives me. And then we should talk about entity structure, making sure that, hey, I'm seeing myself becoming more and more profitable. So now I think it's time for me to switch from an LLC to an S corporation, or I'm thinking about taking on some investors and giving them part of my company. I may be thinking about moving to a C corporation. So those one things. And then it's also about equipment purchases and vehicle purchases, because you already know that with those purchases, you may want to do a Section 179 deduction for those, or you may want to plan on taking some bonus depreciation for the vehicles. So those are some things that you should be considering for sure.
Oh, okay. So I know what Section 179 is. I'm sure many people on listening do, but just explain that to us, because I think it is a powerful strategy that sometimes people overlook.
Yeah, I think one section out, just to make it really, really simple, is when you can buy an asset, something that will usually have to be capitalized over, some life, whether it's 5 years, 7 years, you can now take a full deduction for that amount of that purchase. So if you bought a piece of equipment that was $50,000, you can take the full deduction of $50,000 to offset your construction income.
That's a tremendous benefit for the organization there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick break to talk about my course, The Shift. Why do I call it The Shift? Well, think about the day when you moved up from being a builder of projects to a builder of people and teams. That was probably the biggest leap you've ever made in your professional life. It's tremendously challenging, and many people don't do it successfully. They micromanage, they don't communicate well, they manage their time ineffectively, they get overwhelmed, and they get stressed out. And that is exactly why I have created my online course, The Shift. If you go out to theshift.constructiongenius.com, you can read all about the course, look at the testimonials from people who have taken the shift, and then sign yourself up and every leader in your organization. The best thing about The Shift is that it's a self-paced online course with a ton of bonus materials valued at over $3,000. You get all of that just for purchasing a seat. Plus, it is 100% guaranteed. And what that means is this. If you take the course and you don't get a return on your investment of time and money, shoot me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully Venmo you the money that you've spent on the course, and we'll shake hands and part friends. But I'm very confident that you're going to enjoy it. So go out to theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, take the course for you and everyone in your organization. I know you will tremendously benefit. All right, let's get back to the interview. So you've talked about some ways to extract profit from the company in a tax-efficient manner earlier. What are some other areas that people overlook in terms of maximizing their return and minimizing their tax liabilities?
On the personal or business?
Which way would you like to go?
I'll say let's talk personal a little bit.
Okay, let's go for it.
Because if you're an owner of a company, and let's say company is making a ton of profit and you're already paying yourself a handsome salary. So then now you're like, okay, so how can I get my tax liability down even more? Well, then you may want to start thinking about some retirement accounts,
right?
Because now it's time to implement. People, of course, we want to be great owners and give our employees benefits and all those different things, but there are tax advantages for doing those things, and we want to take advantage of it. So if we start a 401k plan, or if you have a smaller team, you want to do like a SEP IRA or something like that, then now you're able to put in tax-free contributions into those plans and reduce your taxable income today.
Yeah.
And so that is, of course, you're going to pay taxes on it tomorrow. Whenever you are required to take those distributions, or you have met the age requirement to take those distributions, but you're going to save a ton of money when you're making the most money, which is today. So that's a huge strategy that we should try to think back about as we're continuing to grow the company and the company is becoming more and more profitable.
Okay, so that's the personal side. What about the corporate side? What are some other areas that I can be looking at?
Yeah, so some of the other areas there are some credits I've seen available for if you're hiring people who came out of prison. There's some work credits there. So advantages of those things. If you are getting into some type of development, then you want to think about those opportunity zones that you could build in, and those some credits that you can take advantage of there. So there's a ton of things that you can do. The best thing that you can do is be proactive and plan in advance. Just really sit down with your tax advisor and say, okay, what is it that we can sit down and talk about? Because I want to do things, and think about expansion. Okay, I want to do health insurance. I want to do retirement plans. I want to do corporate events. If people don't know, sometimes you can write off a sizable amount for those corporate events that you want to throw for the team. So those are some things that you can do. They pinch off, the taxable income, but every penny counts.
How much support do you give your clients, or do you provide your clients in terms of auditing from the IRS?
So I'm a licensed EA, so I'm able to handle the entire audit with a client. And I have done that in the past. It's not something that I love to do because you get a ton of mail. I mean, my mailbox gets full when all those notices come out. So I don't enjoy the work, but for those special clients that I have, I sometimes jump in to help them out with those audits. And we will handle the entire case for them. We will file the 433As, the 433Bs, and answer all the letters, put in those CDPs and CAPs. I know I'm using a lot of different lingo that you may not be accustomed to, but you will know if you have those letters.
No,
you see those.
So what are some of the red flags the IRS looks at typically with a construction company that would trigger an audit that we need to be aware of?
So demystify something here, where some audits are truly random.
Right.
So like some people like, how did they pick me? Sometimes it's just a truly random audit. I've seen clients who have done nothing wrong get audited.
Right.
So I just want to put that out there. But I would say inconsistencies, when things on a tax return jump up by huge numbers, there's no consistency, then those stick out because, the IRS, they're using I have to believe that they're using some form of AI technology or some type of technology that they're running these things through to look for these discrepancies or these outliers. And so when those things are happening, then that's when an audit gets triggered. So being consistent and then also making sure that all the information is being filled out properly. I can't tell you how many times, if you submit something to the IRS, and we have a software that shows us all the different critical diagnostics before we submit. So the things that, hey, we don't fix this, it won't stop you from filing the tax return, but it will increase, your chances of being audited if you don't fix those things.
So inconsistencies and incorrect information, what would you say are some, other than those that you've just mentioned, is there anything else that sort of guarantees almost that you're going to get audited and you really need to avoid?
If you're not filing your payroll taxes, your 941s and 940s, but you're claiming, see, that's another thing too, like you're claiming salaries and wages on your tax return, but then the IRS don't have any 941s or 940s to compare it to.
Okay.
That's like almost an automatic audit. If those numbers don't match, all those things like that, those are like automatic audits.
Interesting.
And then because when we're talking about payroll taxes, the IRS considers that trust fund money. And I don't know if you ever thought about a trust fund, but when you pay the attorney and they have to sit this money in an account that they can't touch, that's kind of what the IRS is expecting the business owner to do, to not touch this money. And so when they say that money hasn't been paid to us, so now you have stolen from not only your employees, but from the IRS. And that's kind of how they look at it. And that's why it's so serious.
Okay. So those are some of the basics that you can avoid. So the structure of the company is really important. What would you recommend a company to do in terms of getting into a rhythm of going through their books and sort of self-auditing themselves so that everything is in line and things are as clean as possible so that when we come to the filing periods, it's not a fire drill every single time we get there?
Yeah, you have to close the books. You have to do a hard close. You should have a month-end checklist if you're not working with an accountant. An accountant will have a month-end checklist, but we're trying to close the book so we don't have to revisit it. So we're checking, making sure all the vendor payments are in the system and they're documented correctly. There's no duplications of vendors, meaning that I use a different name, even if I'm off by one letter, and I documented those expenses to two separate vendors, but they're supposed to be for one. So just really tight month-end close processes is what's going to prevent you from running into a lot of problems. So it's a constant thing. Like if you have to set up a daily cadence for making sure that you get in all receipts and bills and invoices into the system, and then maybe a weekly cadence of running a report to see how things are, and then maybe a monthly cadence, to pull like this massive report and do a hard check. But it's only with constant checks that you're going to make sure you avoid these problems.
All right, quick break. Talk about my book, Construction Genius. I tell you, this is such a great book. And let me tell you why it's a great book. Because it is simple, it is effective, and it is no BS. In other words, you're going to pick it up, you're going to read it, it's going to resonate with you, and right away, you'll be able to take information from the book, use and apply it in your company, and it will transform the way that you lead. Go to Amazon, read all of the 5-star reviews, and there are over 50 of them. And also purchase a copy for you and everyone in your company in the leadership roles in your business. So the reason I say for everyone is because they're only $19.99 per copy. And this is what I'm going to do for you. Since you are listening to Construction Genius, If you purchase a book and you don't like it, and you're saying, Eric, you said it was 5 stars, but really it's a solid 3 or maybe 2.5, then shoot me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will personally Venmo you $20 and refund you all the money that you've spent on the book. But you know what? I'm so confident that you're going to like the book that that's probably not going to happen. But if it does, I will send you that refund. Okay, so check out the book, link in the show notes. Let's get back to the conversation with Timothy. I'm just wondering, we hear stories, really sad stories at times, when construction company owners are defrauded by their employees. And, one of the big challenges people have is obviously giving trust. But then once the trust has been given, what would you recommend a construction company owner does to verify that everyone in their company is on the up and up in terms of the way that they're handling the finances and the cash in the organization?
So the first thing you want to do, if you are using cash, stop using it. Cash it's untraceable.
Right.
And it gets lost. All types of things happen. So stop using cash. Put in controls, making sure that, hey, if you're going to issue company cards, maybe I'm not going to issue company cards to everyone. Maybe I'm going to issue one card for purchasing office supplies and then one card for purchasing job supplies. And then that way I have only 2 people to reckon with if something's wrong.
Right.
And then you can control with those employee cards, you can control the spending amounts. Maybe it's 0 at the beginning of the day. And then when they come to you for approval, someone in the office or yourself can go in and up those limits so that way they can make the purchase. And then at the end of the day, you shut it back down. That's a control there. When it comes to like bill pay, instead of writing company checks, like I really like getting rid of the company checkbook. I want the company checkbook to be a small checkbook that's just in my pocket, because checks have your routing and account number on it.
Yep.
And with that information, people can do a lot of damage.
Yep.
So we like to set up a system like Bill.com where you run all your payments to vendors and suppliers through that. And guess what? The checks are written off of their checking account, not yours.
Right.
And so they're sending out a check that doesn't have your information on it.
So that's the thing, right? It's interesting because if you're going to handle the money side of your business, the tax side of your business efficiently, be tremendously disciplined, and you have to be consistent. So when you're working with construction company owners, how do you make sure you support them to keep them on task as far as this is concerned?
Any construction client that works with us, they meet with our team weekly.
Right.
I don't know how many accountants are doing that, but
yeah.
We meet with our construction teams weekly. So we're almost like the accounting department down the hallway for our construction teams. So therefore we can stay on top of them. There's constant communication every single day between our team and the construction team. And so that's how we do it. We just make sure that our communication channels are open and we have constant meetings. We don't overdo it. We know that everyone's running a business and everybody has a job to do, but we are meeting weekly.
So if I'm looking to interview, or maybe I'm not satisfied with my current provider in terms of, my CPA or my tax professional, my accountant, what are some key questions I should be asking as a contractor when I'm interviewing someone to weed out sort of the best from the not so great?
Yeah. So first thing, do you specialize in construction accounting?
Yep.
That's number one, because it's very unique. The other things is how often will we meet?
Yep.
Because you already know that you're going to need a communication channel that's very open. You can't sit around waiting 3 weeks to hear from your accountant.
Yeah.
It just won't be effective in a construction company. And then what type of technology do you use?
Yep.
Are we going to be using QuickBooks? Are we going to be using a project management? Are we going to integrate these solutions? And how does it work? What's going to be my role? What's going to be your role?
Right.
Do I need someone in the office right now? Or can we work it a different way? Because some of these, depending on the size of the construction company, they are very small teams. And so sometimes it can be scary. And then also, like, what's the evolution of what we're doing?
Right.
Does it start off with all these things Or should we start off with doing some of these things, get this process right, and then, move on to the next thing? Like someone who really has a plan for your company, that's someone who you probably can consider working with.
When you're interviewing with a construction company, what are some red flags where you're like, I'm walking away from this opportunity, even if it's like really sweet and there's a lot of, you're walking away from maybe some serious money?
Oh man, if they don't want to meet. Yeah, they like, I don't want to be meeting every week, or I can't, dude, I'm too busy. That's almost a tall tale sign right there.
Right.
Like we're just not going to work, because when I need to get clarification, or my team needs to get clarification on something, you're not available, or you don't want to be available.
Right.
So that's not going to be good for me. The other thing is, are you ready to make a change?
Right.
If you're not ready to make a change, you're not ready to work with me, because it's going to change. We're going to be using technology. That's the reason why you're here. You're not, you don't have these solutions integrated. You don't know what project management system to use, and which one works with QuickBooks, and how to get these other things like Dex and Bill.com going, and how these things work together. So if you're not willing to make a change, then you're not ready to grow with an accounting firm like G+F, because we need people who know that, hey, I may have been doing things the old school way, but I have to evolve. If I'm going to be around, I have to grow. And I know it's going to stretch me. I know it's going to be hard, it's going to be painful. I know my team is not 100% ready for it, but we have to do it. And as long as you're going to hold my hand and coach me, and I'm coachable. That's the other thing too. Are you coachable? Then we can work together, because trust me, no one wants to see you win like me. No one. So those are probably the two biggest things, which is, are you ready for change? And man, I forgot my first point.
The communication.
Yeah, the communication piece. Yeah, which is so important. And communication, we just can't work without it.
Yep. No, I get that. Why do you like accounting?
I like accounting because it's a service that I use to solve problems.
Right.
I am naturally a problem solver, and I like challenges. And so there's a lot of different ways I could have went. I could have been a doctor. I could have been an engineer, but I chose accounting because I like business. I like solving these type of problems, real money problems. And accounting is just a tool that I use to do that.
Tell us a story of a construction company that came to you that was flailing, and because they were willing for communication and change, you were able to help them really get a big transformation.
Oh man, I have a client right now. I don't want to mention his name, but man, he came to me. He had he's been in business for over 20 years, and he was just like, Tim, I'm tired of working the 60, the 70, sometimes 80-hour work weeks. I don't know how to get out of this. Yes, we're doing $1 million in revenue, but it's killing me to make this money. And I just don't know how to get out of this rut. And so when I came to him, he had no systems. The accounting, the QuickBooks that he had was not reliable. And then he didn't have a time clock solution. He didn't have an efficient payroll solution. He didn't have a project management solution. So we had to set all those things up, but he was so coachable, and he was just so ready for change, because he was literally tired of just working the crazy amount of hours. I saw him add, we've been together, might have been like 3 years now. I've seen him increase his team. He added probably an additional 5 to 6 employees since we've been. And so, if he added 5 or 6 additional employees, his revenue went up.
Yeah.
Tremendously.
How about the number of hours he's working?
Oh, he's taking more vacations than anybody I know. And he's going to conferences. Like, he's attending, continuing education classes, things to help him, just do more and do more for his company. He's just growing like a madman, and he loves it, because he's like, man, I'm loving the fact that I have delegated all this admin stuff, all this back office stuff, to someone who's great at it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about your company, how people can get in touch with you, and who you like working with.
Yeah. So we are a construction accounting firm. We like working with all trades, I especially like specialty trade companies, plumbers, electricians, HVAC mechanical companies, those type of things. But I also work with those residential custom home builders, those type of builders as well. And we are on all, social media. LinkedIn is where I live. So if you want to speak to me, you want me to message you, LinkedIn is where you want to reach me. And then of course we have, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube to showcase a lot of other different things about our company. And we have a website, construction.accountant, really easy to remember. Construction.
That's a good one.
Yep. .accountant. And so that is the best way to get a meeting with me, because you're going to go there to book. And we want to work with clients who are ready for a change. They're tired of just doing things the same old way, and they're coachable, and they're ready to communicate consistently with an accountant because they want to be proactive. They're tired of being reactive. And
excellent.
I can't wait, man, because we also got a book coming out this year too. So it's going to be fun.
That's sweet. Sweet. Did you have a title for the book yet?
The title is still being worked out, but it's called Blueprints of Success, a second stab at running a construction company.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Great. I know from my own personal experience that publishing a book has a tremendous positive impact, and I'm sure it'll do the same for you, because it'll really give people an opportunity to get to know you and get a tremendous amount of value. So, Timothy, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing your insights, and I do wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for listening to my interview with Timothy today. Go out to his website, construction.accountant, and also connect with him on LinkedIn. All the links are in the show notes. And I hope you found this beneficial. Feel free to share it with other people and give us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. Share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit. And always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.